G'day guys and welcome back to another video with Enno here from Fantasy Take TV. Today we'll be doing the third and last installment of the Rate Your Team series, if you want to call it. Not much of a series when there's only 3 of them, but the last time I'll do this with only less than 5 days now until game week 1 kicks off for us in Australia, us Australians, which is of course most of my audience. Will be 5 a.m. on the Saturday morning, so it's a Friday night game over in the UK, and that means, as you can see, the deadline up the top there for us is at a nice 3:30 a.m. over that night. So I'll be staying up till the deadline for that, but we'll definitely obviously be finalising my team before going to sleep that night. So just something to think about. Don't miss that deadline, of course, thinking that the first game is going to be Saturday night. It is a Friday night kickoff to begin with, and I've just got the game week 1 fixtures up here just to look at. So we get that obviously Palace hosting Arsenal game at 5 a.m. that morning. Then we get sort of the Fulham hosting Liverpool back into the Prem at 9:30 for us, and then there's a host of games at midnight, and then Everton-Chelsea standalone at 2:30, and then finish it off with a few games on the Sunday night there as well. So looking forward to that massively. Feels like it's been a while, but it hasn't really, to be honest, since the end of the last season. So Prem kicks off, World Cups in a few months' time as well. So going to be a lot of football on. Looking very much forward to it, but I won't waste too much more time because there's a few teams to get through. So as you can see as well, there's a league code on the bottom right. Like the video if you do enjoy it. Helps me get the algorithm going, and subscribe if you haven't already, and then just follow the socials below. On Twitter I'll be tweeting about FPL, the FTTV account. We might do some stuff as well once Supercoach is over, and then obviously my channel, just hit subscribe if you haven't. So I did tweet just before or earlier today that I'll be doing this video, and again it's a lot of replies, only I think 40 or 50 replies, so unfortunately I can't get to everyone. I honestly wish I could, but I just don't have the time to do that many. So I've got about 10 or so again here, and I'm pretty sure I tried to not double up on anyone that I did last week or in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully those people haven't. Well, of course they can always reply, but I don't think I've double upped on anyone that already had one. So we'll get started. I'll kick off, I guess, with Seb here, who's at the top. Who's got a 4-4-2, which I think we're seeing a lot of the 4-4-2 now. It's sort of moved back towards that. It's funny, everyone always tends to want to go big at the back, and especially this year with how much value there was. But you soon realise that the flexibility isn't quite there with 5 at the back. And whether you think that's important, of course, there's going to be the wild card early or early enough, maybe around game week 6 to 10, wherever it will fall. Knowing that we have the World Cup free transfers. So maybe flexibility isn't as important to you, and even depth really to begin the season, because you're just attacking early fixtures and going from there. So anyway, I believe the 4-4-2 is looking like the most popular now. Seb said he likes the idea of Bailey. He wants a 4.5 defender rotation with him though, because as it's been said and known, that Villa fixtures after the first 2 do get a bit tougher, and then there's a couple more nice fixtures later. But Dunk and Lamptey he's gone for, or he's thinking about. But Castagna also looks like an option, he said as well, who apparently was playing right mid for Leicester in their last pre-season game. So it is a bit risky, I think, to go with that. I'm not sure if that's something that will continue. Rodgers might just be playing with some different formations. There's a few players that might be getting sold. Kasper Schmeichel's gone. Of course, that's a keeper. Not too relevant to Castagna, but he does change formations a lot. He has some strikers that are more than capable of doing a role for them. So sometimes they play 2 up top. Sometimes they switch formations with Harvey Barnes as well. So I'm not certain that Castagna will get that role to begin with. And if you're relying on that position to back up Bailey and you want to rotate, I don't think it should be someone that's also got a question mark over themselves as well. So I think I would prefer or advise you to stick with a Dunk, or probably just a Dunk, to be honest. Someone that's safe and know he's going to be nailed on, know he's going to be starting every week. And then so when you want to bench Bailey, you know you're going to get points or at least a start out of that player. So As far as the rest of the side, I love it. It's got all the picks I do like. I do like Neto. I like Walker to begin with. Cucurella just been announced he's going to Chelsea, so that's not happening there. So I think Walker's going to be a great pick just to begin with. I think he's not going to be nailed on completely for every game, but I think he at least plays probably 5 out of the first 6. He probably misses 1, but I think that's perfectly fine, and you're going to bank clean sheets with him to start the season. So Ramsdale, I think, is the best 5 million goalkeeper. I do have him ahead of Mendy now. Chelsea will take a little bit to gel with their new, just getting Cucurella, Koulibaly, new defence. But I think Ramsdale for now will be the better starting one, and then that may change as the season progresses. Salah, Kane, double up on the Liverpool defence as well. And then Jesus up top. Totally think this team is very, very good. And while it may be template, I think that's perfect to begin with. Then we head across. George is the next one here. So he's told me, thanks for doing 5 FPL vids a week. I don't think it's that many, but good to see there's time restrictions aren't a thing anymore, since there was only one Supercoach video a week, which, by the way, isn't true. I was actually doing my own team and trade videos for Supercoach before I brought it to the idea that we did them together. But the thing is, it's pre-season FPL. Once it kicks off, I will just be doing probably the 1, maybe 2 a week, but probably just 1, team selection, and then trades for the next, or transfers for the next game week. But he's put a team together. George, he's going to be playing, or at least to start with. Whether he lasts the whole season, who knows? But he's gone the 4-4-2 as well. He's got the double City defence, but with Ederson in goal. So it's either sort of Ederson and Zinchenko, or you can go Walker and then Ramsdale, and then you can use that 0.5 somewhere else if you so desired. So obviously Ederson and Zinchenko cost 0.5 more than the Ramsdale Walker scenario. But what you do probably get with this is someone that's more attacking in Zinchenko. So whilst Ramsdale, is just a keeper, Ederson probably won't get any bonus points. Ramsdale actually probably does. So Walker and Ederson are pretty much just flat clean sheets, whereas Zinchenko and Ramsdale, they might actually get some extra points. If Arsenal keep a clean sheet, Ramsdale probably still makes a few saves. And Zinchenko, we don't know. To begin with, he'll be playing left back. Whether that continues, past a few weeks into the season, once Tierney's fit, who knows? I suspect he'll move into the midfield, which of course can warrant some attacking returns. So, do you prefer sort of the safer Ramsdale and Walker, or do you want to spend that 0.5 more and go Ederson and Zinchenko? I think this is totally fine. Perisic is one that I've sort of not jumped back on, but sort of warming to further and further as he's played some more preseason minutes. Got 75, I think, in the last game. Conte's, all his press conference words are pointing towards him probably getting a start in the opening week, which I think with that Southampton fixture is really, really enticing. What happens past that, whether he gets a benching here and there, is probably going to be expected, I would say. But I think the upside with him is far too high to go without. So I think I'm more than happy starting him myself. And the rest of the team, again, is pretty straightforward. He's got Luis Diaz, of course, instead of Robbo, which I think is totally fine as well. He's going to get his chances. And then Kane and Jesus up top. Solid team again, the 4-4-2. Then we go to the Supercoach Bull, another 4-4-2, but some interesting picks and different ones that we haven't seen before. So the same sort of City double defence, got that Liverpool double defence, but he's got Trippier, who in my video of plays to avoid had him in there just because of those early fixtures. Obviously not the first one, Forest at home, which is a great one, but the City and Liverpool ones in the first 5 game weeks are not something I want to worry about. His bench, you can't quite see it, but it's just the Neco, Williams, Andreas and Greenwood that you see on most people's teams and benches. So not really anyone to sort of properly rotate with. I mean, I think Neco has Everton in game week 3, so probably okay with playing him over Trippier for that week. But you've also got Almiron in this team as well. So you've got both Newcastle blokes with 2 very poor fixtures in the first 5 that I wouldn't want to be fielding him for. So look, Almiron's looked great in pre-season. Everyone, I guess, is jumping on your Jesus's, your Netos and all that for having good pre-seasons. And I guess you can say, why not Almiron the same? But I just don't don't really see why you would pick him instead of some other picks. I know he's cheap, but I just think Leon Bailey has got 2 better opening fixtures, and then probably someone you can rotate out there. But I just don't like the setup with no rotational pieces for those guys. So Mount I love. He's a bit of a lower end of the 8 mil mids. I'd probably still go Saka ahead of him, maybe for just that sure thing, and he's on penalties, I believe. But Mount's a great pick too. Can't go wrong there, I don't think. And then again, the rest of the team's fine. It's got a lot of the good picks that I believe most will be going into the season with. But yeah, those Newcastle boys, not too sure about them, to be honest, and probably not something I would go with for game week 1. Then we got Harry Brennan. Breno, mate, how you going? Good to see you getting involved. The 4-4-2 again, so there is quite a lot of them. Rhys James, I do like to see Rhys James, although he's not in my team. Just the fond memories of what he did for me last season. I managed to, luckily, I will say it was luck at most times, to catch his high scores and big games. Because I know for a lot of people that once they got him in, he delivered the sort of the zeros and the ones a lot. So, he's got great upside, and if he is playing right wing back, it's going to be nervous watching him as a non-owner. But I just don't really want to go into the season with the Chelsea defence, but I can totally see why you would, especially Rhys James. He is the only one, though, that I would touch if I was to go one of them. I don't really think Mendy's worth it. Chilwell, you've got to write him off now with Cucurella just getting signed today, even though he probably doesn't straight away start, although he could. It just puts some doubt there. So Rhys is definitely the one I would, or the only one I would touch out of them. Rashford, interesting one. With Rashford, he has great history in his first 2 or 3 seasons, and then last year was just so poor, but that was United as a whole. So if you think they'll improve, which, the only way is up really by their standards, so you would think they would. It's just more Ronaldo's still kicking around now, and looks like no one really wants him, and he's going to stay. So it does annoy me a bit. Whilst he doesn't play the exact same position, it's just an extra attacker in there. I mean, there's Eriksen as well, who hasn't really played much with the first team in pre-season at all, and he's got to play, you would think. So, there's Rashford, Martial, there's Sancho, there's Bruno, there's Eriksen, there's Ronaldo, and look, Elanga probably slides down the bottom of that table, but there's just a lot of attackers that, whilst I think Rashford will start, and he should, rotation might be possible early on, and especially you've got Leon Bailey too. That's someone that also, maybe a couple poor performances. I think Stevie G will give him the go from the start, but some, average performances, and he might see the bench as well. Which you also have just the Andreas and Neco Williams bench that most people do. Whilst they're going to be good options, I wouldn't want to rely on them early. But like I said at the start, attacking the early fixtures is something that I think is viable, because we will be playing that wild card at a fairly early stage. So, rest of the team I like. You got the triple Liverpool, which I think is a must. You got the double City defence, which I think is the safest and probably best way to go about City to start with, unless you want to go a Haaland. So, like the rest of the team, think it's good. But I'm probably just would say Martinelli over Rashford to begin with. I think his minutes are more safe. To be honest, I don't have any concern with his minutes. Whilst I don't think he'll play the 90 that others might, he'll definitely start every game to begin with. Emil Smith-Rowe, it's barely been cited in the preseason, still carrying some sort of an injury. So there's no threat there, but he just, Martinelli may come off around 70 every game, but he'll start every game. Whereas I think Rashford, is a chance to probably not start, not to begin with, but maybe down the track. Then we go to James, who's got, what does he say? Nothing in the bank. This is why I put this up. He's got the 3 Arsenal attackers in his team, and I just think this is not viable. It very well might be, but in my opinion, with the Palace and Game Week 2 Leicester fixtures to begin with, I just wouldn't want 3 triple up on attackers from Arsenal to begin with. It would be great for Bournemouth and Fulham. I think that's totally viable then. So maybe if you wanted to go someone else and work your way into that, like maybe another 8 mil mid over Saka, or maybe someone else instead of Martinelli, like a Bailey. I know you got to keep $1 million in the bank for that, but maybe a Rashford like Harry had, and go down to a Martinelli for once those fixtures hit in Game Week 3. That's probably what I would look at instead of starting with it for those first two. Rest of the team, Trippier, I've already sort of spoken about him and what I think about the Newcastle selection to begin with. I think they'll feature in our sides a lot this year, but not to begin with, in my opinion. And then Salah, Kane again. I mean, we're not seeing many Haalands. We're not seeing even anyone sort of going without Salah. So I think that's the way to go. The Kane and Haaland, I still think is a real 50-50. You know, game week 1, Kane probably outscores him, but that Bournemouth fixture, I keep looking at it, and if I don't have a City attacker and Haaland probably is the one, it's really going to be tough to watch, because there's real doubts over Bournemouth. Their managers talking them down, saying we have no defenders, we have no players. We've had a poor preseason. We're in worse shape than we were when we got promoted. So it's really looking like that could be a large one for City. It could be 5+ that day, and Haaland's going to get these chances. So I still think that's a real 50-50. But yeah, rest of the team looks good. I think it's fine to have nothing in the bank, as you asked, but the 3 Arsenal attackers is something I wouldn't do. Next, we've got Tomba. So finally, different formation we see here, and it's the 5 at the back. And this is one I wanted to put in because he's got the double Spurs defence. So double Liverpool as well, double City and double Spurs. And I think that's actually really, really good. Like, I think that can really do some work for you early on. If you're okay with having no 8 mil mid like he does here, or he doesn't here, sorry, I think this could really, really pay dividends early. Of course, the flexibility with 5 at the back isn't great, but you've got Podence, or you can't see it here, he's got Podence at his first bench spot as well with Andreas. So if you think that the 8 mil mid isn't an absolute necessity, then I think this can really, really put up some big points. I think Perisic will start game week 1. I think Doherty will as well. Whether they do and how many game weeks into the season they do, and whether they come off early and all that is hard to predict. But I think they'll both start game week 1. I think having double defence of these 3 teams, which many are tipping to be the top 3 in the league, with how attacking they are, all 5 of these guys can go absolutely off in a given game week. I think this is actually really, really good looking. So, who knows? Doherty and Perisic might be the Rhys James and Chilwell from last year that did so well, for me especially. Like, I wildcarded them in around game week 7 or 8, and they went absolutely bonkers. So maybe these Spurs guys could do it for you from the off. So it is something that's really tempting, going Doherty maybe over a Walker, because they're both for 5 mil. But you'd have to be confident that they're going to start most games than not. But he does have the good backup in Podence, who will be playing in the front 3 for Wolves to begin with, and they have really good fixtures as well. So really, it's the trade-off of not having an 8 mil mid. So because Jesus is so highly owned and just seems like such a lock, you have to go with him. If he wasn't, you could go with an 8 mil mid instead of him, have just Kane up top and have the 5-4-1 or something. But I think you have to go with Jesus. So if you're okay with giving up that 8 mil mid and really confident on those wing backs, I think this could really, really bang for you early on. So I actually don't hate it at all. Next, we got Theo, who's got another 4-4-2, but with a few different picks here that we can talk about. Firstly, would be Danny Ward. So he's obviously anticipating, and I think many people are, as Brendan Rodgers alluded to in a quote I saw today, that he'll be first choice, or at least he is right now, with Schmeichel getting sold over to Nice, I think. So in France, he's gone. Danny Ward is currently the number 1, and they're not looking to get another number 1 to bring in. Apparently, they'll just bring in a number 3 that can sort of back them up in case of injury. So he'll be fighting with Iverson, his name is, or Iverson, who is actually priced in FPL yet, which is strange, but I think many assume that he'll come in at 4.5, whereas Ward here is 4 mil. So he'll be many of our 4 mil keeper on the bench, but is it viable to start him as your one on the field? It's not something I totally love. What it does allow, or it has allowed Theo to do here, is still have Trent and Cancelo, have Perisic, who's really good value, have a 5 mil in Zinchenko, have Salah and Kane, so the 2 premiums still, have Jesus, but have 2 8 million mids with Neto as well. So whilst he's got Maddison and Foden, you know, they could be whoever you want. It could be Saka, Mount, could be even Luis Diaz, who he doesn't have because he doesn't have a triple Liverpool. Talking just purely structure here and allowing that to have you 2 8 million mids really does look enticing, but I think I just wouldn't want a part of that Leicester defence, even if it is just a goalkeeper. I really don't think it's just something I would want to do. They looked really poor last year. You know, they lost Schmeichel, who probably is, even though he's getting on, was still better than Danny Ward, but if you think they can improve, I know it is just a keeper. You don't always expect massive points from them, but you do want at least some consistent points at times. And Leicester really just were shipping goals last year for fun. So it does allow you to get those 2 8 million mids. But I think if you were really desperate to do that, I'd maybe steal the 0.5 off Neto and make him like a Leon Bailey or something, and go up to a good 4.5 keeper, or just one that's a bit better. So look, what it allows you to do is really good, and obviously you've gone a little bit cheaper in defence, but I think it looks really good. So I don't like the Danny Ward as your on-field keeper, but maybe if you really wanted to keep this structure, you'd steal the 0.5 from Neto and go a Leon Bailey. So yeah, I think it looks good. I would have Luis Diaz, though, as well as the third Liverpool, because I think they're a necessity, or it's an absolute must to do that. Next, we've got AJ, Big Adrian Johnson. He's got a 4-4-2 as well, but again, some different picks we can talk about. So Jose Sarr in goal, who was really good last year, especially in the first half, was just unreal. So, you know, saved Wolves in a lot of games, but the simple fact is that they were giving up a lot of chances, and he was just bailing them out. And if they continue to do that this year, you expect Sarr's numbers to probably come back a bit, because he was just playing out of his mind. And if, you know, weighted numbers, if the chances are going to keep coming, you know, he's not going to stop everything forever. So, and we did see that drop off for them towards the back end of last season. Good defence, can't fault that. Trossard, big Trossard in the middle is one we can talk about, and believe he had a hat-trick in one of the preseason games not too long ago. Brighton's fixtures are okay to begin with. They're not too bad. But for 6.5, I just think there's a lot better value in other players. I would like to see an 8 million mid in this team, which I think you can get to quite easily, whether you go you know, a Rhys James down, or you change from Jose Sarr down to a 4.5. You probably got to do 2 of those moves to find it. I think that's something I'd consider, because I think Martinelli and Neto are just much better picks than Trossard, even in isolation. You know, even if without their price, I think they are, and they are both cheaper than him. So I think I try and get an 8 million mid in there. But if you do like Trossard, maybe you drop a Neto or a Martinelli and go maybe 5 at the back or something like that. But look, Trossard is not one I'll be totally on board with. I do appreciate a point of difference at times in differential, but it's not something I focus too much on from game week 1. But I think it's something that you can definitely look at into the season once you sort of get your team rolling and get some points on the board. But yeah, I think Sarr, I think Ramsdale's a better 5 million goalkeeper, and then for Trossard, I'd probably try and get into an 8 million mid or restructure somehow there. Couple more to go. We've got Nathan here. He's buying into Arsenal having some serious improvement in their back lines. Zinchenko beating Tierney for the left back spot early in the season. Then he says Mahrez get it swapped for any of the City mids daily, but he should be locked on pens, so likely going to stick with him. Another 4-4-2 as well. He's got Diaz in their defence, which is someone a little bit different than we've seen. Saka, Mahrez, Neto, along with Salah, and then Haaland and Jesus. Yeah, I agree. I really want to pick a City mid, an 8 million, Foden or Mahrez, someone like that. That especially for that game week 2 fixture. So it's just really hard watching the Community Shield on the weekend. Grealish starting on the left, Mahrez on the right. But once Grealish and Mahrez went off and Foden and Alvarez came on, they looked a lot better and they got back into the game. They scored. they obviously ended up losing 3-1, but they were just much more lively than Grealish and Mahrez were, from what I could see when I was watching and when they were on. Doesn't mean that always it's going to be like that, but it just puts too much doubt for me to start any of them, really, for game week 1. Haaland's the only one I'd probably touch, and of course that means you're not going Harry Kane, so the 8 million is really hard to figure out. Here I'd probably either drop one to Martinelli, get a Diaz up to a Cancelo, because I just think he's really, really good value, like Trent at 7.5. I think Cancelo at 7 is just great as well. And then maybe use a resty cash on maybe a better keeper, whether you go a 5 or a 5.5. Is up to you, or whatever cash you've got left, but I think that's probably what I would prefer. It's just is hard with the City mids to begin with. I think it's something I prefer to wait and see what it looks like they're going to do for game week 2, and whether you just trade into one then. You've already got Haaland, which is going to be really good in game week 2 for you to captain, but yeah, the Mahrez thing is just hard, and looking at your bench that you can't see, you just have the stock standard bench that all of us will probably roll in with Neco Williams and Andreas, and whilst they'll be playing and they'll be decent options, you don't really want them coming on off your bench. But look, to be honest, Mahrez probably makes a cameo even if he gets benched anyway. So like the structure, I'd probably try and get some cash to get Diaz up to Cancelo, because I just think he's an absolute lock. So last one we'll get to, and that's Amit. So he's got another one with Danny Ward as his on-field keeper. So I've spoken a bit about that. This team is Van Dijk, where I'd get rid of. I'd really try and find 0.5 to get to Neto, Robbo, which I think can be done. You've got Dewsbury Hall on your bench as the bench one, which you can just make a 4.5 and find the money there. So that's the number one thing I would do with that money. And you've also got Sanchez on the bench. I didn't see that either. So I guess Sanchez is your keeper, and you got Danny Ward on the bench. You're just going to maybe rotate them, which I have seen is actually not a bad option with how the fixtures line up. So yeah, I would steal the 0.5 from Dewsbury Hall. I know he might be an all right bench option, but I just think Robbo is that much better than Van Dijk. I know Van Dijk plays every game, and he'll be nailed on, and will score a lot of points himself from clean sheets and the odd headed goal, but Robbo's upside is much, much more. And on my video, I think I said in my last team update that Robbo scored 10 more points than Virgil last year, and he played about 500-600 less minutes. So if Robbo stays healthy, his upside's a lot higher, and I think it's a much, much better pick than Verge. So rest of the team, again, I think it's great. Mount, if he's your 8 mil mid of choice, I have no issue with it. I think he's awesome. Nailed on, probably Chelsea's best player, and has really, really high potential game week to game week. So, Everton week 1 could go massive. And then I think the rest is perfect. Zinchenko, maybe you could argue could be Kyle Walker, who you prefer there. And then, yeah, Martinelli, Neto, Jesus, Kane. We've seen a lot of that, and I think it's warranted. So, all in all, I think a lot of the teams are you can see they're sort of filtering towards each other. 4-4-2 seems really, really popular now. A lot have moved away from 5 at the back, which is funny, but probably to be expected as you sort of realise how inflexible it is. If you wanted to make some moves, if you put all your cash into defence, it's hard to, if you wanted to get on someone in the midfield or forward line to sort of, take cash out of a couple of players, it's really hard to do. So, maybe you want to take a risk and you're happy with playing a really, really early wild card, maybe even into a month into the season. So if you're okay with that, depends how risky you are as a manager. But really the crux of it is you want to attack the early fixtures, really make sure that you have a plan around captaincy, what you're going to be doing week to week, because that's my biggest headache, I think, at the moment. I really like Kane and Salah as a duo for premiums to start with, but once it gets to game week 2, I think most of us will probably just captain Salah again. But I look at that City Bournemouth fixture, and I really I'd need an attacker in that fixture for that. So I am almost leaning more and more towards back to Haaland from Kane. And I know that's funny that, we've all probably been chopping and changing all the way through, and I think I'll still be doing that for the next 3 or 4 days all the way through as well. So It's been a long one, half an hour, but thanks for watching, guys, and I will certainly get some shorter form videos going over the week. Maybe discuss some different players, 1v1, you know, probably do an 8 mil mid video, because I think they're really hard to pick as well, and most of us are picking one, and then maybe you know, some defenders, probably a couple of those 5 million ones, Zinchenko, Walker, even the goalkeepers, Ramsdale versus Mendy versus Jose Sarr, and then the evergreen Kane versus Haaland is something we'll maybe dive deep into as well. But really looking forward to now, not long left to go, only a few days, and as always, join the Discord if you want to get involved. There's a lot of boys discussing stuff in there. Follow me on Twitter. As always, I will be tweeting throughout the FPL season and just the Prem season in general. We've got to get around the Gunners. They're looking good in pre-season. Of course, it's just pre-season, but it does get a Gunners fan that's been started success for a while a little bit excited, but just looking forward to it. So be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and then there will be many more videos to come. But until then, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Got the mojo deals, we been tripping like, hey, pulling out the coupe at the lot.